Hi everyone! How are you? Sorry if I was like 30 seconds late or whatever. I had a lipstick dilemma. I picked out a new lipstick to wear and like you can't even tell on camera, but it's not very good. It's quite a nice colour and it smells and tastes like, well, it tastes a little bit like the jam from Jammy Dodger biscuits, if you've ever had them. Anyway, welcome to TERF Wars, Season 2, Episode 9. The show where we go through the last week's worth of nonsense from transphobic people, gender critical people, TERFs, anyone who might be opposing trans rights for any reason, and we look at their arguments, we laugh at lots of them, we shake our heads in despair at lots of them, and we debunk lots of them. So that's the purpose of the show. I've gone through all of these screenshots and things that people said. I've anonymized all of them, apart from when they're from really big, important people and institutions and things, or people that's relevant to say who they are. So the goal is to look at the ideas, not at the people. So don't go searching for these people or harassing them or arguing with them or anything. The goal is to deal with their ideas here so we don't have to, bother with the people. So yes, for anyone new, welcome. It's very exciting. Thank you for being here on your first ever time. And for everyone else, ducks in the chat, thank you very much. Today I am drinking out of a slightly invisible plastic cup from a Czech Republic festival. It's like rum and pineapple. So that should be good. Though I think it's, this whole lipstick's going to come off, so whatever. It'll probably be smeared all over my face by the end of it. And so we're just about to start, but if you make it to the end, I have a very exciting announcement. So if you can make it to the end, that'd be great. Show's about an hour and a half, so we'll see. But anyway, let's move on to it. I, of course, this week started with the most important news of the week, which actually happened late last night. And that is Mr. Potato Head is no longer Mr. Potato Head. They are gender neutral Potato Head. Because, of course, this is a real news item that people not only really care about, but also that really happened. So here's a collection of the international news getting on it. Like, this, I think this is a snapshot from someone else who obviously searched for these, and several of the mainstream articles have done this, like Yahoo, Associated Press, Huffington Post. I know Fox News has done some. So this story is blown up, and everyone's saying like, Mr. Potato Head goes gender neutral. No more Mr. Potato Head. Hasbro drops Mr. and Potato Head after 70 years. So you can imagine that all of the reactionaries were instantly offended at this, and we're all blaming trans people because, of course, it's trans people's fault that they might want to change the name of their toy. But, of course, if we look at the press release, would you believe it? It's made up. Every single week there's something like this. I think there's actually another one, maybe even two more this week, like this. So this is Hasbro saying, this is their press release. Hasbro is officially renaming the Mr. Potato Head brand to Potato Head to better reflect the full line. But rest assured the iconic Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters aren't going anywhere and will remain Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. So they've written this defensively because they know that people are going to kick off and they can't be bothered with the hassle. Like, they could write this. If you say something's gender neutral, then the entire world talks about it for some reason. As if anyone cares. But, of course, people did care. And people were offended by this. People were outraged by this. Some people were saying this is why people voted Trump. And, like, what are you talking about? The reason that, in a way, this is why people voted Trump, is because people spend 1 second reading a news story, which spent 1 second reading the source material, and just completely made up a narrative about some minority group which is easy to hate, trans people, or Muslims, or gay people, or women, or something that's easy to hate. And you just believe it. Like, oh, of course trans people are demanding gender neutral potato head. I mean, last week they were demanding that Janet Street Porter sacrificed her breasts. So this is totally on brand with them. And the thing is that you can keep making these stories up and keep them coming because, like, the last one people believed and the one before that people believed. And there's just been this relentless assault of bullshit for, years now. So people see, like, if this had just come out of nowhere, firstly, people would be like, I don't care. And secondly, people would be like, what? Why is that? And then they would might do some more research than 1 second reading a headline and see that it's all bullshit anyway. But when they've had 3 years of gender neutral Father Christmas and like sacrificing breasts and children sacrificed to appease the trans lobby, they'll just be like, oh, of course. This is, culture's going crazy. No, I've got to vote for a fascist now in order to stop the trans people from renaming a potato. The whole thing is so pathetic. Sorry, I was just checking the next thing. I didn't even bother including some of the reactions because it was just exactly what you can imagine what the reactions were to this. There's a load of people offended about a potato, saying it ruined their childhood, and this is the reason the West is going to collapse, and God, it's just so pathetic. Anyway, that wasn't actually the biggest news of this week. I just wanted to start with it. That was one of the big news items of the week. The actual, probably biggest and most exciting news item of the week was that Gallup did a poll of American citizens to see what percentage of people are LGBT, which is always interesting to have. And they reckon 5.6% of the US is LGBT, which is really exciting. That's 1 in 20, and it's an increase, like we would expect, from the last one, which I think was 2017, they were saying, or compared to 2017, it's an increase. So, I mean, that's good news that more people are feeling able to come out, are feeling able to feel safe and stuff to come out. It's good news that they're taking statistics on this. It's just interesting and exciting. I think, this will continue to go up, and then there'll be 1 year where they'll announce it's gone down because it would have gone down 0.25% or something, and then it will just hover around there until forever, or until there's some kind of horrible fascist scenario. But it's just exciting news. But there's a breakdown of statistics in this article. So this is percentage among LGBT adults and a percentage among all adults are of the different groups here: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and other, including queer and some other. I guess maybe it was fill in your own. I'm not sure. Probably should have looked that up. But very interestingly, of LGBT people, which is 5% of the country, and it's probably a good estimate for most countries, I guess, is that over 50% of LGBT people are bisexual. That's just an interesting statistic. I didn't really have a number in my mind for what percentage of people might be bisexual or gay or lesbian or anything. And over half, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me that bisexual people are the biggest group, but it's also interesting that in a way they're the least represented. And there's a whole complicated web of reasons why that is, ranging from specific prejudice targeted just at bisexual people to the fact that there is a lot of prejudice against LGBT people in general, and bisexual people sometimes have the option to not come out, get in a straight relationship and be happy with their relationship. So, it's interesting anyway. And then here's the overall percentages. So interesting here, 0.6% of people are trans, 0.7% of people are lesbian, 1.4% of people are gay. So there's a lot more gay men than there are lesbian women or trans people. Though interestingly, obviously you can be trans and one of these other things. So these percents, they're not mutually exclusive, they're overlapping. So they would add up to more than 100 because you can be trans and any one of these. And half of trans people are lesbian, gay, or bisexual. So it's hard to do full analysis on any data that's complicated like this. But anyway, here was another one where interesting result, which they broke it down by generation, which is just very interesting. So they've got Generation Z, millennials, Generation X, baby boomers, traditionalists. So the age groups here are anyone born before 1946, anyone born before 1964, 1980, 1996, that's my group. I was born in 1989, and 2002. And then they've done the breakdown. And I mean, kind of what you would expect. For all of them, the percentages go up the younger people are, because more people feel able to come out now. Younger people are more accepting. Lots of older people, even though things are more accepting, might still just feel in their routine, in their ways. They might be married to a straight partner and might be not feeling able to come out. And there's all kinds of reasons. But I think it's kind of intuitive that, at the moment at least, younger people are more likely to be openly LGBT. And that's kind of reflected here. And there is a very big jump between, so up until 1964, it's like they're kind of the same. Then there was a big jump for Generation X, and then another big jump for millennials, and another even bigger jump for Generation Z. So that's very interesting, particularly for bisexual there. Like, it's gone up, nearly 10 times in 2 generations, which is, that's pretty cool that so many people feel able to come out. And one finding, which of course, this is why this isn't just here because it's interesting. I'm not just talking about this because it's interesting LGBT stuff. One of the findings was, if you can see up there, for Generation Z only, there were more trans people than lesbians, which is, and also for millennials, which is that's interesting. I don't think I would have guessed that myself, but perhaps trans people, I'm not quite sure how the categories work. Perhaps trans people includes non-binary people. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting statistic anyway, that's how, and that wasn't the case for Generation X. However, it is worth noting that the percentage of people who are lesbian in Generation Z is nearly double what it was for millennials. So all of the groups are still increasing. But you know what's coming? What's coming is, of course, the reason there are now more trans people than lesbians, even though all of the groups have increased, and lesbians have increased by more than trans people in the last generation, that of course means that all the lesbians are being erased and they're all being forced to be trans people for some reason, even though none of the statistics say that at all, and there's absolutely no reason to think that at all. Anyway, here's quite a famous journalist, Glenn Greenwald, who's jumped on the anti-trans train, saying absolute garbage here. He's saying, finally, as famous lesbian Katie Herzog has written, among millennials, there are more trans people than lesbians, and she's argued that masculine girls are being encouraged to identify as trans, causing a decrease in the lesbian population. From the chart that he's posted, that is just plainly false, because there has been nearly a double in the lesbian percentage of people in the generation, in between generations. So in the tweet with the screenshot he's put, that is just plainly false. It doesn't make any sense at all. You could potentially argue that all of the lesbians are now trans women and all the cis women are now trans men. There's no, anyone who's ever been to a ladies LGBT night will know that it isn't mainly trans women. That's complete garbage. But you couldn't, even if you were to pose that as a theory, you just don't have the data to make that assertion here, and the data strongly suggests that isn't the case, as does common sense and what everyone's experienced in the real world. But anyway, he goes on to say, Katie's article argues about lesbian culture disappearing, and just the article, which we'll just look at in a sec, is mainly just saying, where have all the lesbians gone, which is the title, they've all become trans. And then Glenn finishes off with, clearly, the massive increase in Americans self-identifying as LGBT, I'm not quite sure why that has to be in there. Like, how other way are you going to identify someone as LGBT? Like, see if they get an erection when you show them a picture. They just really hate the idea of self-ID so much that they're willing to suggest that all LGBT people might be lying about it for some reason. Like, that's part of it. Pushing this self-ID thing is part of it. Anyway, then he goes to say, the massive increase in Americans self-IDing as LGBT, an increase due overwhelmingly to more bi and trans self-identifiers. I mean, that's not quite true. He's like, is partially a function of increased social acceptance. Yes, but that's clearly not the only factor, and I doubt it's the primary one. Clearly, just clearly. I mean, I'm not gonna provide any actual evidence for that. The implication is that it's a social contagion, which is a classic. That's been a scare story about LGBT people since, like, I don't know, since I've been alive and beyond. They've been talking about how the gays are coming for your children. The gay agenda is to convert children into gay people. Like, it's the same. It's the same bullshit, homophobic stuff. And in this case, still homophobic, but particularly targeted at bi people and trans people. And of course, particularly trans people. Which is just, you know, all completely garbage. Like, the fact that you can just say it's clearly not the only factor, that for the first time in history, people are talking about trans rights in politics and in TV without them being criminals. Like, that's going to have such a massive difference. Like, it must only be in the last decade there's been mainstream positive trans representation in the whole history of, like, the West. So, like, to just claim that isn't the main factor is just ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? Especially with no evidence. Anyway, we can have a look at Katie's article. I've linked it in the description, and I've also linked the Gallup report in the description for you if you want to have a look, which is, it's worth looking at. It's just fun looking at data done by a decent organisation that doesn't try and spin everything as the trans people coming for your children. So this is a snippet from the article, and perhaps you should read the whole thing for the context. But she says, there's been no clear polling on the shift from lesbian to non-binary, so my sense that the lesbian is endangered is purely anecdotal. Yes, it is. But there are plenty of anecdotes. Yeah, that's how anecdotal evidence works. Like, you as a human have 100 people tell you something, and you're like, gosh, 100 people, how can they possibly be wrong? But because you're writing articles about, you know, lesbians disappearing, the 100 people in the world who think that too are all going to write to you. And then when you look at the actual stats and see that the number of lesbians has nearly doubled in a single generation, or the percentage of people who are lesbian, then that it just doesn't match up with the statistics. Bearing in mind this is linked from the report, which, like, basically disproves this article. Yeah, and she says, after I put a call out on Twitter, my inbox was filled with emails. Like, of course. And then she says, so this is a quote from a student. Lesbians are pretty thin on the ground for Gen Z. A student I'll call Hallie wrote, I have one other lesbian friend, and together we have collected reports of 5 other lesbians between the US and Canada, of which 3 are in our generation. I mean, this is like an argument that lesbians are disappearing. And here we have Gen Z, thin on the ground, the highest percentage, the first time ever it's been more than 1% of people are lesbian. And it's nearly 1.5%, which is nearly double of what it was in the previous generation. Like, this anecdotal evidence just doesn't match with the stats at all. And Glenn was just happy to just link the two. It's just all this, it's all this garbage. It's, you know, creating patterns that sound right to their narrative. Anyway, where have all the lesbians gone? So, of course, our friend Gremlin Hands has been on the case. So his quest to defend lesbians this week involved a lesbian, and actually I'll let them describe themselves in a second. Let's just read Gremlin Hands' description first. These are all from a lesbian dating app named Her. There's a collection of pictures beneath. I urge you to show this to anyone who's on the fence about Stonewall. This is part of their Stonewall conspiracy theory. Blah, 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 blah. Loads of garbage. The title is These Are Not Lesbians. I mean, you can read this if you want, but like, it's just nonsense. But he went on a dating app. This dating app called Her, which says, Her is here to connect women and queer people, a travel buddy, a friend in a new city, your ride or die or love. A friend in a new city, your ride or die or love for life. Be yourself, find her. So in their bio on Twitter, they explicitly say they're for women and queer people. So this isn't like a lesbian dating app. This is like LGBT women app, I guess. It's for non-binary people. It's for women who themselves are looking for women or non-binary people. So he went onto this app, found a load of pictures of people that he didn't think looked lesbian enough, didn't look feminine enough, didn't look enough like the women that he decides are lesbians, and just posted all of their dating app photos on his blog. It's like, God, it's just so slimy. Like, what's wrong with you? And if they're I know that they've got this narrative of a lesbians being erased and being replaced by trans people, and somehow it's like both trans men and trans women's fault somehow. Though mainly trans women, of course. And like, if you're trying to argue that there are these like lesbian dating apps that are only for cis women and still the trans women are trying to infiltrate them, why would you pick an app which is explicitly for trans people as well? They've even spelt women with an X, which I know that winds up quite a lot of people, to be honest. I think it's a bit of an American thing. I don't know. I wouldn't ever spell women with an X, but you know, it's usually a sign, but not always, that they are making a point about including trans women too. So why pick this app and why not pick a different one? There is actually a dating app just for cis women. It's like a gender critical dating app, and it uses like phrenology to analyze your face to see if your skull is female enough. Like that, and that's real, by the way. I really should have included a screenshot of that. I think it's called Giggle. Anyway, yes, he then, after this started blowing up, he then made a profile on this app, like, and lied about his age and his pronouns. It's just kind of grim, isn't it? Like, why? I mean, well, we know why. So pathetic. Anyway, so Her responded to this because it kind of kicked off. Let's make this clear. Her is an app for all women and queer folk. It is not our nor anyone else's place to question or invalidate another's identity. We are here for all women, including the trans community. Please be assured that this user will be found and removed from our platform. Additionally, we are in contact with Substack to have this dangerous act of transphobia removed from our screens. So Substack is where this is published, and Substack has so far not even bothered to respond to anyone about this because, you know, this is kind of constant. So if anyone knows anyone at Substack, you know. But so this is just like so pathetic, and this is like actually a cell phone. I know that lots of them feel like this is some kind of slam dunk, like men signing up to lesbian dating apps to show that men can sign up to lesbian dating apps. I mean, if you talk to lesbians, the fact that there are like cis men on there pretending to be lesbians is a real problem and always has been. So really, they're just contributing it. They're just proving, yet again, that the real danger of, you know, people pretending to be women or whatever and taking the piss and being total fucking creepers is cis men, and particularly gender critical men who always do this kind of grim stuff all the time. So that's a cell phone. But then it's also a cell phone because every single person knows instantly that this is bullshit. So their only argument is, how are we supposed to tell? Well, obviously we can all tell. All the gender critical people know this is bullshit. All the trans people know this is bullshit. The people who run the app know this is bullshit. But there's no There's no question. You always instantly know when some gender critical man is making a point because it's rubbish. Like, it's pathetic. You can tell instantly. Of course you can tell. It's stupid. Just creepy. It's just like, you know, creeping on women to make a point. Like, what? Grim. Anyway, so we've of course got a whole host of ridiculous reactions to this. Here is two men who I'm talking to here. One of them says, change your brand name to him/her or just him. Like, oh, hilarious pronoun joke, mate. It's pretty good for gender critical people. It's different from attack helicopter, at least. But it doesn't really make sense, does it? Because it's not for men. That's like the explicitly the thing. It's not for people. Anyway, so I was like, why not make your own app with a load of gender critical men and you can police who is a real lesbian to your heart's content? There was a lot of men reacting to this, like a lot of men. The idea of policing who is a real lesbian for some reason really appeals to men. Like, they aren't policing who's a real man on men's dating apps for men, you know, gay men and whether trans men are included or not. They're all these creepy men are posting about lesbians. And then this guy, this cis man, has then replied, we would, but you lot would demand entry within a heartbeat. Firstly, I don't want to be on a dating app for cis people only because it's some creepy gender critical men policing who you really are app. Secondly, I'm not going on lesbian dating apps anyway. And thirdly, that's what you were doing. The only person in this whole discussion who is creeping onto apps that they're not welcome on are gender critical men. So, completely nonsense. Anyway, it's just disgusting. I can't tell if it disgusts me or I kind of find it pathetic more. It's definitely pathetic though, isn't it? Like, it's time to drink to the word pathetic because I've said it several times in a row. So, this is another incredibly frustrating piece of news from the UK. Government agrees to call pregnant ministers mothers. I mean, what's the problem with that? Who cares? Then underneath it says, gender neutral language is consistent with the drafting convention, the government says. So what's happened here is, actually I think I've got a clip from the article. Yeah. The government has agreed to change the wording of its new maternity leave legislation from referring to pregnant people to mothers after the House of Lords complained. The new bill is being fast-tracked through Parliament because of a lady who is expecting her second child, and otherwise you'd have to step down. So basically, the situation is, disgracefully, government ministers who are pregnant currently, as of until this bill passed, didn't get maternity pay. So they had to quit their jobs if they wanted to raise their children. It is like, what, 2021? 2021? Who calls it that? In 2021, the UK didn't have maternity pay for government ministers. And I'm glad they're fast tracking it through. Like, they're actually doing something right here. They're saying, oh, one of our ministers is pregnant, which doesn't happen, loads, and she should be able to get maternity pay. So let's pass a law so she can get maternity pay before she gives birth. That's good. That is all good. And they passed the bill, which is also really good. And usually they write all bills in gender neutral language. So I don't know if you remember last week, but we discussed them complaining about pregnant people as a term in another bill, which was from 1999. So it's got precedent. They actually have some rule. It says here, the government policy is to write gender neutral language since 2007. So all of this is old news that they've always done, and it was just default to write pregnant people. But the gender critical people all lobbied hard and complained, and they got them to change it from pregnant people to women. So this, and then they all pretended they were defending something. So it's important to note, the whole kind of scene of what's happened here. We already had gender neutral language as standard. No one's ever complained about it before. That's just the default. then a group of people claiming they're defending the definition of women have come in and not defended anything, but changed what we already had. So they're not like, that's the opposite of defending. They're either attacking or they're like progressing. They're not trying to keep something. But of course they're framing it like that. And then they've just gone from a bill which refers to all people who might be pregnant, which is 99.9% women, and then occasionally it's trans men or non-binary people. And that's not just like an opinion, oh, it's crazy trans rights or whatever. That's just literally a fact that some men in the UK have given birth. Some people who are legally men, and men who you would meet and not, would just refer to as man in the street or whatever. Just some men in every single context apart from crazy gender critical land. Legally, some men have given birth. So they passed this new bill, which now doesn't apply to them. So if there was a trans man in this situation, technically this bill doesn't cover them. No one gains anything here. Literally no one has won anything, apart from transphobic people feel like they've just done a little flex. They've just done a little show of power to show what they can do. They can change an established government standard to take away inclusive language and make something less accurate and worse for some people and no better for anyone else at all. Like no one there is literally no gain here for anyone other than people smug about telling trans men they can't be can't be fathers and that they have to be mothers and stuff. And like you can see that all of the people talking about this, they're like, oh, only women give birth, only women give birth. That's all what they're saying. That's the celebration here. The celebration is that they've won the culture war on this little point. Not that they didn't say, like, just imagine that there was a real reason for this. Like, for example, the language that we covered last week with when they're talking about mothers and midwives might want to talk to people. The Brighton NHS was like, use the word mother for mothers, and then also just be aware that, trans men might not want to be called mothers. And they made a point saying, this is best for everyone, because if we just switch to default gender neutral language for everyone, then lots of people who are mothers might feel left out. And like, that's a good argument. If they had said, oh, people are feeling left out or something, but this is a legal bill. This isn't like patient bedside manner. This is a law which has to accurately describe everyone involved. And if they had campaigned for women and trans men, which is what this NHS thing was, then that would be fine. But that isn't what this is about. This is just about enforcing that idea that trans men are women. That's this whole thing, which is just so pathetic. And it just shows like how much power they have in government to make these ridiculous changes. And this was the House of Lords, so literally not one single person involved in this has been elected. Like, this is if you're not from the UK and you don't know what the House of Lords is, like, we've still got the Queen and she doesn't really do anything, but then we have lords and ladies and baronesses and all this kind of bullshit who literally change the laws and make things worse for people. That's so garbage. Like, the UK is such a fucking state. Yeah, no one's benefited from this at all. Just gender critical people got like some little win and got to spit on trans men. That's it. And then while we're on the theme of stupid language changing and Mr. Potato Head and all this kind of bullshit, here's another nonsense thing. This didn't kick off as much though, because this is from Australia. But Woolworths. So for any, I don't know if Americans and Canadians if you have Woolworths, but Australians, when you say Woolworths, it's just like, well, yeah, obviously Woolworths is just a supermarket. But in the UK, Woolworths used to not quite be a supermarket. It was the kind of shop you go to buy like pick and mix and CDs and saucepans and stuff. It sold like random stuff. It sold Lego, and it wasn't really a supermarket. I don't know what kind of shop you call it. But they went out of business in the 90s or the 2000s. And it's kind of like this joke of like, bring back Woolworths. I actually hated Woolworths, but because I worked there. But when you talk about Woolworths, all the Australians just like, and all the British people are like, yo, you still got Woolworths, what? And they imagine something different to what it is, and it's quite funny. Anyway, Woolworths in Australia changed feminine hygiene to period care on one of their signs that they put, so you know which aisle you're in. I think this is quite clearly a benefit. It's like a good thing. I mean, there's no reason why you need some euphemism, feminine hygiene. This isn't about trans people. I mean, it does benefit trans people too. It definitely benefits trans men and non-binary people who don't feel like feminine hygiene represents them. But it's not a big deal. It's not as big a deal as a law change. But mainly this is a feminist issue because, firstly, why do you have to have a euphemism for it? There's nothing wrong with periods. Like, there's no reason to be ashamed of periods. And if you come up with all these like euphemisms for them, then people feel like there is a reason to be ashamed of them. So just calling it period care is just like, deal with it. Like, there's nothing wrong with periods. It's just fine. And then also the hygiene part kind of implies that like women or periods are unhygienic and you need to like have you got your hygiene for your period? It's like, it's not unhygienic to have a period. It's just normal. So I think it's just a kind of a feminist improvement. It's not a big deal, but you know, of course, someone saw some kind of, it's gotten vaguely more gender neutral, so they of course got offended by that. Someone says, for shame, dwarfs, bowing down to the men's rights mob. Yeah, men famously want to rebrand feminine hygiene to period care. That is what men... You go to the pub and men are just talking about periods, like, non-stop. That's what men's rights activists, that's all they talk about, periods. It's like their thing, as we all know. Anyway, only women have periods, so this is just about trans people. Your sign should reflect the truth, not politics. Period care apparently doesn't affect the truth. It doesn't reflect the truth. Erasing women is not okay. And by the way, we buy most of the groceries. I buy with you every week, but not after this. So it's just another standard. Gender critical people getting offended by some thing that can this could maybe help trans people. This is the same as the last one. They don't like the idea that other people are being included. Like, it doesn't benefit them. This isn't like them saying, it used to say women and it's taken women off the sign, so I feel like you've taken women away, which is sometimes it's a good argument and sometimes it's kind of just a crappy argument anyway. But in this case, they're just like, they've gone from feminine hygiene, which is kind of bullshit anyway, because some women aren't feminine and they don't want to be, to saying what it literally is. So it's total nonsense. But then this person says, shout out to this person if they're in the chat, by the way. This is a positive step for women. Feminine hygiene is an unnecessary euphemism and there's nothing shameful about periods. Exactly. Fully agree. And then they've said, nobody suggested periods are shameful. But feminine hygiene sounds more pleasant. When I see period, I think of blood flowing from vaginas and it's kind of pleasant. So nobody has suggested periods are shameful yet until my next sentence. So literally you've just said, nobody's saying periods are shameful, but periods are shameful. It's garbage. Anyway, thank you to men's rights activists for changing this sign in Woolworths in Australia. This is incredibly frustrating. Sorry, this is a bit of a wall of text. But a while ago, there was yet another Newsnight documentary about trans people with no trans people featured, demonising trans children, and not even talking to a single one, by the same people. It's always by the same two journalists who write complaints to things and then report on complaints being written to things. Like, really dodgy shit stuff going on here, working for the BBC. Like, an absolute disgrace. Like, this would be a scandal if it was for anything else. These people doing all these anti-trans documentaries anyway. But then this, on its own, this thing that we're about to talk about, is also a scandal. It should be a huge one. Like, this kind of kicked off a little bit, but not nearly as much as it should have. Someone wrote a complaint saying, what the fuck, you've done a documentary on trans people and you haven't talked to a single trans person yet again. Like, what are you doing? The BBC is meant to be neutral. So then this person has written back such a load of nonsense. I have understood your complaint to be that the programme did not speak to a transgender person at all. You asked, how can your reporting be balanced if you give airtime to the attacker but not to the attacked? I have therefore considered whether the programme met the BBC's editorial standards, and in particular the requirements for impartiality that were set out in the BBC's editorial guidelines. The guidelines refer to the need to due impartiality, where the term due means that the impartiality must be adequate and appropriate to the output, taking account of the subject and nature of the content and the likely audience. Then they say, I appreciate the concern that you have raised. I appreciate the concern you have raised, but I'm afraid I do not share your view that it was necessary to include a contribution from a trans person, bearing in mind the scope of the focus of Newsnight coverage. But as you can see, due impartiality means taking into account of the subject and the nature of the matter under discussion when deciding which viewpoints are to be reflected. On this occasion, the focus was on the High Court decision and the consequences for young people receiving or waiting for treatment with puberty blockers. Yeah, and who's that? It's trans people. What are you talking about? This is just so bullshit. Not only have they made yet another programme on trans people and not featured a single trans person, they've explicitly said the goal of this was to focus on the needs of the children affected by this horrible anti-science court ruling, and they haven't. They only talk to detransitioners, which is fair. They should talk to detransitioners. They should talk to detransitioners who are both anti-trans political zealots and also detransitioners who aren't. They didn't. And they should talk to trans kids, which are the majority, the vast majority, 99.5% plus of the people who are affected by this. And they didn't. And they're trying to spin it as if that's reasonable. It's just so transparently bullshit. Just imagine if they did a programme about women's rights and they didn't talk to a single woman. Like, this is exactly the same. It's just utterly disgraceful that the people at the BBC can get away with this. Like, this is meant to be neutral. There's such transphobic rot at the BBC that they will publish this stuff. Like, they'll publish one pro-trans article and then there'll be a single complaint from LGBT Alliance and the article will get taken down. Or they'll have to have a quote from like some hate group in the article included. They'll be like, trans people want basic rights, but we hate transpeople.com says that trans people aren't human. So we don't know. We've got to do some balance. We've got to do balance unless we're platforming, taking away trans people's rights, in which case we don't have to do any balance at all. It's just disgusting. Like, I know that the BBC has kicked off an internal review process about this, but I have absolutely no hope for it at all. Obviously, one of the editors is gender critical, and this isn't going to get past them. And some of the news organisations picked it up, but of course most of them didn't, because most of the UK's organisations are transphobic, so they're not going to cover this because they all love this report. So I don't know, just kind of stuck. It's kind of garbage. And then to finish off actually no, I think there's another one. I was going to say to finish off the trilogy of British organisations being totally shit. So we've had the House of Lords, we've had the BBC, now we've got the NHS, but I actually think there's another one coming up. Tavistock and Portman, which is the NHS gender clinic for children, their library. So this is the only place on the NHS you can get help for children. Posted this article, which has razor blades on the picture, talking about self-harm. I probably should have censored that. I'm going to blur that afterwards. Talking about self-harm, and how children who are depressed and cut themselves are the same as trans people who want to get trans healthcare. Like, the flipping, this is this is plainly anti-science. This contradicts all of the evidence we have for trans healthcare. And this is just like a transphobic conspiracy theory. This is barely an argument better than the kind of thing you would find on 4chan where they're like, oh, anorexia is the same as being trans. I think it even makes that claim. And there was all kinds of disgusting comments about this, like about how transsexuals desire mutilation and things. And this posted by the NHS's only gender clinic for children. What is going on? Like, these are the people who just lost that court case that we were just talking about in the last one. Like, how are we supposed to feel that anyone involved in any of these British institutions even remotely cares about trans people. It's not just that they don't care, it's that they are, whoever posted this is actively transphobic, and they should lose their job, honestly. Like, it's utterly disgusting that they're meant to be there representing the best for children and trying to help children and give them the best healthcare, and they're posting conspiracy theories about trying to take away their healthcare after they've just lost some horrible court case, which is like the first of developed nations in the world to overrule the science with some garbage position, because the NHS just didn't even really try and defend itself. Like, it's just so disgusting. Oh yeah, this so this is the fourth one. So this is also from the BBC, but this is CBeebies, which is the like children's. I think it's like for very young children. CBeebies actually did something good. So I've just been slating the BBC. There are some good people who work at the BBC, and sometimes good programs come out. There are some very good journalists there, but often they then get, swept under the carpet by the transphobic editors. Anyway, I don't know if it's still up, but the BBC posted a short little video about a lesbian couple who had just had a newborn baby, and they were just saying some families are different. So it was a lesbian couple. One of the ladies was disabled and one of the ladies was a trans person. And so it was just interesting. And it's really nice knowing about all these different types of families, because, whatever family I have in the future isn't going to be the standard cis-het family. So, it's just good seeing people succeed. And they both seem like really nice people. And they both seem like, they were saying about the struggles of going out as a lesbian couple with a baby and being worried about it, and giving some nice hopeful advice and saying you can overcome it, and like they lived in a small town in Wales or something. It was just a really nice video. And of course the gender critical people hated it. So this is the most deranged of all the replies, I think. BBC, this is a heterosexual couple, not a lesbian couple. So like just garbage straight out the gate. Of course it's not. They were literally discussing about homophobia that they face in the street in the video. If it was a straight couple, they wouldn't be facing homophobia in the street, would they? Like, absolute joke. They both describe themselves as lesbians. So where have you come up with this idea that either of them are straight? It doesn't make any sense at all. Lesbians are women who are same-sex attracted as defined by the UK Equality Act. No, the UK Equality Act doesn't define who is a lesbian. Like, there were lesbians when being a lesbian was illegal. There were lesbians in countries where lesbian people have the death penalty. There have always been lesbians since before humans had language, and there will be lesbians after society collapses. Always has been lesbians, and it's nothing to do with the stupid UK law. Complete nonsense. And then they've said, your actions in promoting this are therefore illegal. What's wrong with you? So are you just saying that there is a couple out there who is illegal? Like these two women in love who've just had a baby, they're illegal. And you're like, what do you want? It's like something like Saudi Arabia. Like, you're not allowed to, sorry, you can't exist because the law defining the Equality Act says that you can't exist. What are you on about? Absolutely. And the thing is, I know this person who wrote this believes this. People believe this. Like, they got 11 likes, which isn't loads, but like, there's people out there who see this and they're like, of course. That's just like deranged. What are you talking about? It's just openly homophobic, transphobic garbage. And it's the kind of thing that leads to things like Section 28. Anyway, how are we doing for time? Okay, better speed up. This is another completely nonsense one. The College of Policing needs to be sued. They are based directly opposite a notorious rapid onset gender dysphoria gay nightclub in Vauxhall and a den of BDSM sex dens around the corner. They work for the public, not themselves. What are you talking about? What the hell is a rapid onset gender dysphoria nightclub? I thought ROGD, for anyone who doesn't know, ROGD is a anti-trans conspiracy theory that being trans is like a subculture, like being a goth. And that's kind of what Glenn Greenwald was talking earlier. They would love this idea of social contagion. But this person thinks it's a social contagion nightclub? Like, all these children going to a nightclub? Is that what you're suggesting? Or are you suggesting that, like, adults go into a gay bar and come out trans? What are you talking about? And then I also love the den of sex dens. So it's like, there's one big super den, and inside it are lots of little dens. And then what, like, the College of Policing needs to be sued because their HQ is opposite a gay bar? That's your reasoning? Okay, mate. I'm sure you're a very rational and sensible person who's come up with a very good argument and everything you need to. Like, they just love suing people at the moment. Absolutely anyone and everyone who disagrees with them is getting sued. It's fucking ridiculous. It's just like a meme in gender critical at the moment. Like, one of them was complaining that they're not allowed to sue the House of Lords, who called one of them transphobic or something. Like, people are going to call you transphobic when you oppose trans rights. It's just freedom of speech. Stop trying to shut down other people's freedom of speech. It's pathetic. So it's another creepy gender critical. We're into brain rot territory now. We've moved past the news, so I can stop getting angry and we can all laugh at the brain rot. Sorry, I got a bit annoyed earlier because, like, the absolute state of UK institutions, like, gender critical people really have a strong grasp on a lot of them. Anyway, on to brain rot. So this person says, how are you going to tell who has had gender reassignment and who hasn't in the toilets? So it's probably someone arguing that you shouldn't use women's toilets unless you've had surgery. And then their answer is, have you ever heard a man wee? There isn't an invisible force field around the door, you know. This is about giving the women the right to challenge males, given the opportunity to spot repeat boundary violators before they commit a crime. So this is like, it's like, I don't know if you've seen Minority Report, where they have people who predict the future to see who's going to commit a crime, but instead of having people who can see the future, you have people listening to people weeing through the doors of toilets. I'm sure there is a difference in sound between a man and a woman weeing. In general, standing up versus sitting down it's probably the distance that the wee has to go. Or maybe, well, I mean, I think probably there's a difference in sound between genitals. We won't go into it. I don't know. I've never actually listened to someone wee. That's not really a thing that I have spent my time on. So I was like, well, you can always tell by checks notes, listening to how urine leaves your genitals through a cubicle door. Normal. And then, of course, we got the standard gender critical replies to this. ID showing sex as well as gender would solve these problems. No, it doesn't matter what's on your ID. When was the last time you showed your ID to go to the toilet? Literally never. Never in my life have I showed my ID to go to the toilet. And I hopefully never will, because it's completely ridiculous. And what would be solved here? Like, are you saying that people would be sorted by gender ID or they'd be sorted by sex? And if they were in gender critical sex world where you can't change it, like, would it change with surgery? And if it didn't, would that mean that you're forcing trans men who have had genital surgery into women's toilets and they might stand up to wee? It just doesn't make any sense. Nothing about any of as soon as they're talking about bathrooms, it doesn't make sense. Like, surface level analysis doesn't make sense. Anyway, total garbage. But then, so Joss Pryor, who is another favourite of the gender critical people's, like, they love her. They love her as much as they love me. You should all follow Joss. She's sarcastic and northern. So she said, I know 3 cis women who hover and refuse to let their bum meet the seat in public toilets. I've met quite a few women who say that. And she said, I've been in the cubicle next to one of them and absolutely sounded like someone standing to pee. So Joss's claim here is that standing up and sitting down sounds different. I mean, probably does. It's not. I haven't ever listened to it. But importantly here, before I read the next bit, I just want to point out the difference here. The original gender critical person, the adult human female, said that that a way of telling who was a man and a woman was listening to how they wee. Like, and it should be something that you can confront people on in the toilets as a way of preventing them from committing crimes. So this is literally like advocating listening to people's weeing. Whereas Joss has said, I have heard this. There is a difference between listening out and hearing. But also I'm just going to add that I am also not involved in saying that. I've probably heard people weeing, but that's because that's what happens in toilets. But this person then says, well, this is just lovely, isn't it? Two trans women, Joss Pryor and Katie Montgomery, discuss listening to women having a wee in the adjacent cubicle. And then they wonder why women want to retain female spaces, which, I mean, how can it be retaining spaces if me and, for cis women only if me and Joss are already in them? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing of that you're saying is making sense. You can't retain something that you don't already have. And if you already have it, then you can't make this argument. We're either in women's spaces or we're not, mate. Make up your mind. But that isn't what's saying. This is like a complete reversal of what's happened. It's so obviously bad faith. They've cropped out they've cropped out my tweet because my tweet is a quote tweet which shows the original context. And like it's just so bad faith. So gender critical person turns up and says, I listen to people wee. And then we're like, what? That's ridiculous. And Joss is like, well, I've heard people wee, but like, what you on about? And they're like, oh, trans women love listening to women wee through toilet doors. There's literally nothing you can do that they aren't going to interpret in a bad faith like this. I do bear in mind that they're going to try and bad faith everything and choose my wording carefully when I am talking about some subjects. But I didn't even consider that they might on this because it was just so, like, I was like, this is a deranged thing that a gender critical person has said. And I showed everyone and suddenly I'm the widow. This is so dumb. So dumb. Just stop listening to how other people wee. Just go away. Anyway, so another little incident. I drew this cartoon and I think it's just important to highlight this cartoon. Just for a second, I'm not just pushing my shitty artwork here, but this is a kind of a slam dunk against a certain gender critical worldview, which is core to like LGB Alliance's philosophy. I would say it's core to gender critical in general. And it's the idea that sexuality works only on your birth sex. And it's what we saw earlier with this lesbian couple, where they were saying it's a straight couple because one of them had an M on their original birth certificate. It just doesn't make sense. Here I've got a man, an expertly drawn man, and a lady that I stole off Google. And the man is asking the lady for a drink in both of them. And in one of them, she is XY, and one of them, she's XX. And in gender critical world, that means in one of these situations, he is straight, and in the other, he is gay. And that just plainly doesn't make sense. And that's what the cartoon shows. I think that's quite obvious. I think that anyone who was aware of gender critical arguments who saw this would know exactly what it was arguing and be like, oh yeah, obviously this doesn't quite make sense. They need to alter their worldview. This is either a straw man, it's not a straw man, or this is a counter to an argument they're actually making. So you would expect the replies to this, of any, like I was challenging people to reply to this. The replies would either be, this is a straw man, my actual argument is X, or an explanation as to how this works, i.e. magic is real, or that's it. Or the third response, which is what we got loads of, which is just deflecting. And they cannot approach this argument. They see it and they know that it's a counter to their position, so they try and steer away from it, because they steer away from it so they don't have to confront it for themselves and also for other people. And just look at some of the replies I got here. Someone's like, it doesn't make a point because it shows two completely identical people that can only occur with identical twins. No, that's obviously not the point they're making. It's pathetic. Hang on, is this really how you think sex works? Stick figure says hello to an anime avatar. No. What? Embarrassing. The fact you have to resort to abstractions on the basis male and female shows there's no real world examples. No, it doesn't. There's so many real world examples. What are you talking about? I'll go for a drink with anyone as long as they're paying. Is this person a gender identity? It's so embarrassing. They look, and the reason they did this, if they didn't know, like, the reason I know this is bad faith bullshit and they're like unwilling to address an obvious hole in the worldview is because if they saw my cartoon and didn't understand it, they would accidentally trip into it and make a mess of it. They would come in saying, oh no, because sexuality is based on your chromosomes, or they'd be like, what does this even show? Because like they're attracted to one or they're attracted to both of them, and then you'd be like, well, obviously that's the point. They see what the argument is and they're like, I can't address it because there's no defense to it. So instead I have to make some little deflection. I haven't had anyone try and address this yet. Literally no one. So it's just garbage. You just always get these deflections for all of them. So we're on to, I've mentioned this a few times before. I pick a different emoji for every different person. And if you see the same emoji twice, it's the same person from this episode, but they're different across episodes. And every week I save the alien emoji for the most ridiculous conspiracy theory. And I think it's this one. The robot head's like second place, and we do have another one straight afterwards. But so Robot Head says, women fought long and hard for equality with men. Now they have to put up with having that equality taken away due to men now becoming women and wanting the equality of women no matter what. Strange world we live in. So this is a standard gender critical talking point. It doesn't really make sense because if women fought for equality with men and then men want to like have women's equality when they're either already equal or like women would have had to have become made it unequal for this to make sense, but that obviously hasn't happened because women are either equal or not quite yet equal with men. So it doesn't really make sense. It's just like a thing that you say, oh, trans women are trying to steal women's rights, so they're stealing their equality. But anyway, our alien head says, men lost the equality battle. Women won. Men changed tactics. It's the same war. This phase is however, is colonization, domination, and silencing. It's a lot like the old days of empire building, discovering, and then claiming other people's lands for the emperor, queen, or what's her name. What? So in this person's world, it wasn't women fighting for equality to get equal. There was a battle between men and women in which only one of them could be equal, and then men lost it. And then the men were like, we have to get the equality back. And the way we're going to do it is to become women. Like, what is this? How, like, this is another surface level. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's the way they say it, and they've strung a load of words together that sounds like, oh, they all nod along, but like, wait, what? Are you saying there was an active, conscious effort by the men to change tactics, to transition, to fight in the equality battle? Like, what are you talking about, you absolute goon? My goodness. Anyway, this was a runner-up for the conspiracy theory of the week. You do know that LGBT is a corporation that has financial interests. They're worth trillions. Look it up. Oh yeah, LGBT people is an international corporation. That's who I work for. LGBT. Pay international taxes in Bermuda, so we don't have nonsense. Anyway, this was an interesting little twist. Maya Forstater, who is a lady involved in a court case who J.K. Rowling talked about. She's like she's a very prominent gender critical person who is appealing a legal decision which could be absolutely terrible for minorities in the UK if she was to win. So we've got to very strongly hope that doesn't happen. That happens this year. It could be absolutely fucking terrible. But anyway, she's just randomly making some trans rights arguments here without realising it, which I just thought was quite funny. She says, so she's quoting someone else. As for the idea, biology is real, but it's not possible to tell what chromosomes or genitals someone has by looking at them. And then she says, Do you think that women don't experience sexism unless they've been karyotyped or had an internal exam first? Yes, Maya, totally agree. That's something that I've been saying every single day for years. Women don't only face sexism when they've had their karyotype test. All women face sexism for being women, including trans women, because you can't always tell. That is bona fide TRA argument. Like, this is a trans rights argument. You can't always tell. So obviously, trans women face misogyny. Trans women are attracted to people who are attracted to women. Trans women are treated like women in society. Therefore, any kind of law that you try and make that affects any of those things that has a blanket ban on trans women is instantly garbage. If you want to take away, if you wanted to, for example, ban all trans women from women's spaces, that would be bad because trans women face misogyny. That is, thank you, Mayor, that is a trans rights argument that I make every single day. She then goes on. So Kirsty Blackman, who's an MP, says, who's been threatened to be sued by a gender critical person, of course, like pretty much everyone has nowadays. So how do gender critical individuals propose to police access to changing rooms? So here's Mayor's radical, world-changing idea. Put a sign up that says female changing room. Okay. Expect male people not to come in because they can follow the rules and understand that it's inappropriate. Yes, Mayor. Number 2, she's slamming them out 2 in a row. Here she is advocating for self-ID. Self-ID. So yeah, so we're gonna note that trans women face misogyny and misogynistic sexism. We're gonna note that trans women are attractive to straight men and lesbians because you don't know what a woman's karyotype test is until you've done it. So that's obviously not the thing that gates off those things. And secondly, we're going to have a sign on the door that says no men, and men aren't going to go in it, which is what has worked for the last 100 years in the UK and has worked my entire life without issues. So thank you, Mayor Fostater, trans rights advocate. She then went on to say that it should be against the law for trans women to go in women's toilets. So she wants self-ID, but she also just wants there to be a huge legal punishment for trans people who carry on using the toilet like they do today. So like not like this isn't a like passing trans woman argument or anything. It's just a hard line. I can't remember if I included the tweet or not. No, I didn't. So she was just like, if you had an M on your original birth certificate, you shouldn't come into women's spaces. So she's still arguing for self-ID, but just arguing that you should self-ID in a way that gender critical people are happy. And this is the dilemma of gender critical arguments. They can make all this big fuss about trans women in women's bathrooms, which is bullshit, but they can make that fuss because it's very easy to make that fuss. When you say, what's your practical solution? There's only 3 solutions to policing who's a woman. 1, you let society decide, and society randomly picks, well, not randomly, society picks women who don't look like women and harasses them. And that's what they did in like North Carolina, and it just ends up in mainly cis women, mainly lesbians, being targeted by sexists who think that if you're not wearing a dress or if you have short hair, you look like a man. That's option 1. Option 2 is you have some kind of legal check, you have a toilet guard, you have someone checking original birth certificates and entry that will require changing the entire of UK law so that you can't self-ID your passport or your driving licence or your birth certificate. You'd have to get rid of the Gender Recognition Act, you'd have to get rid of privacy for trans people, you'd have to leave the European Convention of Human Rights. It would be a complete turnaround and it would be completely bullshit. Or number 3 is self-ID. And she's realised that. She's realised that we can't have toilet guards, and she's realised that, well, she may have realised that if we just let society police it, then cis women lose out the most. So she goes for option 3 and then just says, option 3, but it should work like how I want it, which is nonsense because we've had option 3 for her entire life. And it doesn't work how she likes it because how she likes it is garbage. And that's not how anyone, it's just, why would anyone do that? Trans women using the women's spaces has been fine for her whole life. So why would they just suddenly stop? Anyway, she's not really a trans rights activist for anyone who doesn't know, but she was making some very strong TRA arguments there. So this person says, if someone with a long beard enters a changing room when I'm trying clothes on, can I say anything? So I included this for two reasons. One is the long beard. Like they always talk about people with beards. That's like the thing. They always say cock and balls, and they always say beard, and they always say burly bloke. They're like the things that gender critical people say to each other in order to conjure up this image in their head of a scary, disgusting, trans woman. And it's always bullshit. But I just thought it was interesting they put the word long here. Like, if a woman walks in and she has a short beard, then what's the problem? But the long beard is that's why it's really scary. But then also, if someone enters a changing room when you're trying clothes on, you should say something. You should say, this cubicle is engaged. Get out. I don't want anyone walking in. I don't want anyone walking in when I'm trying on clothes, because half the time I pick out things that don't fit and it's really embarrassing. This is obviously something that they've conjured up in their mind. There is the reason, I sympathise with people a little bit when they're a bit worried at the idea of someone walking in and the changing rooms in them. Like, that isn't what's being proposed. Nothing is being proposed, actually. We're just saying, you know how it's always worked your entire life? That. Just don't harass people if you think that they look wrong. If they're like sneaking into your cubicle or intimidating you or perving at you or causing a scene or anything bad that you would have reported people before, still do it. But if you're like, that woman has short hair, she must be a man, I'm going to call the police, just don't do that. Don't do that like you haven't done for your entire life. Just stop being a bellend. But just conjuring up scenarios in which you're trying on some dress from New Look and someone pulls the curtain back, and then you're not even allowed to speak because of trans rights, and so some other woman just comes into the cubicle and just starts trying on clothes with you. Anyway, I like this one. So we've got another flag emoji here. This guy who claims to have a PhD is talking about, I don't know, probably Fallon Fox. Blah, blah, blah. And then someone says, I agree. Where are all the fucking feminists? Why is it mainly men defending women's rights? Why is it mainly men who are transphobic? I wonder, where are all the feminists? Is it that all the feminists are arguing against you? I actually think that's probably it, mate. To be fair, this guy got ratioed pretty hard, 400. Lots of the comments were from gender critical people saying, I'm a feminist and I've been fighting for women's rights. And lots of the comments were from feminists saying, because you're a misogynist and that's the reason that you have your bullshit anti-trans position. I support trans rights because I'm a feminist. That's my primary reason to do it. If being trans was misogynistic, then as a feminist, I, wouldn't have come out, I guess. I don't know. But I just thought this was funny. Just not quite realising the reason why the only people fighting against trans rights are pro-patriarchy warriors like yourself is because trans rights are anti-patriarchy. And that's why most feminists support trans rights. Most people who support trans rights are women, and most women support trans rights. So this is from Karen. She says, a distaste for trans people in dating is completely normal. Seeing what is clearly a male in a skirt and lipstick, emphatically insisting he is a woman, is putting off and unsettling. A bit of uncanny valley effect, which is instinctual and a built-in reaction. This is quite literally just saying, I am transphobic. A distaste for people. This isn't saying I'm not sexually attracted to them. This isn't saying my sexual orientation doesn't come with these people. It's saying, I have learned that this combination, how can you possibly claim that someone wearing lipstick, it's natural to react to someone wearing lipstick isn't natural for humans. We invented lipstick. We invented skirts. There couldn't be a more explicit example of someone saying, I am transphobic. They're saying, when I see someone who's doing the wrong gender, I feel yucky. That's the whole thing here. And they're trying to pass it off as natural, normal. It's not instinctual to react to a man wearing lipstick. What are you talking about? What instinct do you think you have? When was lipstick invented? 4000 BC or something? I'm sure the Egyptians had lipstick. the ancient Egyptians. And you're saying at that point entered the genetic line that men wearing lipstick was... Just think about what you're saying, my God. My lipstick is all round the rim of this, as predicted. So let's get some science lessons from this guy. Science has determined that there are only 2 chromosomes. For you, maybe, mate. A person's psychology doesn't change actual science. Oh, I love it from these people when they come in with a little, like, I know how science really works. And then he finishes with, which gender is the Z chromosome or the A chromosome? Oh, sorry. Yeah, mate, trans people debunked. I think we can move on from that one. That's it. Pack up, lads. Everyone detransition. I forgot that my single chromosome is a Z, and that's why I can't be the woman I am today. Oh, this one's disgusting. So this is from a gender critical man, a cis man, who has said, femininity is the scripts for personal conduct prescribed to an oppressed sex class. Opting into that class and embracing its chains as your truth says a lot about a person. So there is a radical feminist argument that at least some of femininity is like performative and is part of the patriarchy. Like, and a good example of this is wearing heels. Men and women could wear heels. Or wearing lipstick. Let's pick wearing lipstick. Wearing lipstick is generally considered feminine, and that is obviously not natural. That's a decision that our society has made. Women wear lipstick, and that's feminine, and men don't, and that's masculine. And that is prescribed by society. So if you do that, you could argue that you are perpetuating it to some extent. So men wearing lipstick, it's like fighting against that, and women not wearing lipstick is, I guess, fighting against it. Though a bit less so, because there's less pressure for women to wear lipstick than there is for men to not wear it. But if you pick something like something that's maybe much more strongly typed, I guess like maybe men and women's names. If you're a woman and you changed your name to like Derek or something, or you're a man and you change your name to like Brenda, then shout out to all the Dereks and Brendas in the chat. Then like you're going against something that's quite strongly gendered. So that makes sense. But then femininity also can cover things like your mannerisms and like your voice and characteristics of you that you can't change. Like femininity is quite a broad description. And so to say that femininity is just like for personal conduct, like when you say conduct, it sounds like the way people act. And like some behaviour is going to be influenced by the patriarchy. Absolutely. Like women choosing to be quiet, not speaking up, that's patriarchal bullshit. But like women having softer voices is just how women generally are. It's just an agreement. It's just extra grim that this has just come from a man saying like feminine people are bad. Like that's kind of what's coming across here. It's like, well, you're not feminine, are you? You just by coincidence you're masculine, and you're saying femininity is bad. Like, what's bad is men telling women what they should and shouldn't do. But then they're saying opting into that class. So what counts as opting into that class? Like, obviously he's talking about trans women here, but like, are women who wear heels embracing its chains and it's saying a lot about them? So you're just judging all women who wear lipstick, don't speak over men because they've been conditioned to, wear heels, like everyone who does anything feminine, whether it's part of the patriarchy or not, whether it's a natural part of as a person, or whether it's like part of some social conditioning, like you're judging people for that. Like you, a masculine man who has never had femininity pressure pushed on them and who has never been naturally feminine is going around saying femininity is bad and I'm judging you for being it. Like, this is a gender critical man trying to make some argument against trans people and just shitting on women as part of it. I was just like, oh. And me and this guy have quite a lot of history, and he's so grim. Always says things like this, like, all the time. Yuck. Let's go on to another fun one. The pronoun community is nuts. Anyone who says she, her, he, him is simply laughable. I'm proud to be part of the pronoun community, aka people who speak English. Or most other languages. Good luck getting through your life without saying she or her, he or him. And yes, we are the laughable ones, not you, who doesn't use any. This was in Marjorie Taylor Greene has entered the trans wars. She's gender critical, of course. She's the conspiracy theorist who believes in Jewish space lasers. Some of her replies are going to be hilarious. We're probably going to be seeing more of those. So, we're coming up to the end now. Got a couple more to go. I just wanted to show this tweet. I think this tweet, so this is from February the 1st, 2018, and I would credit this with being the thing that made me realise that gender critical wasn't just like a feminist movement. Because I remember seeing some tweets saying, are you really claiming that loads of feminists have just suddenly become transphobic? And thinking like, oh, if there are loads of feminists opposing that, and I'm a feminist, I want to hear their feminist position. Maybe there is real feminist positions against trans rights. And I went and did loads of investigating. I made loads of friends. I listened to all the arguments and I really deep dived in, and I had a couple of crises on the way where you hear a good argument, you're like, fuck, maybe this is true. Until you realise there's a counter to it and you understand more. But then I saw this person who was being billed as a feminist and pushed by other people claiming to be feminists. This is where I felt gender critical might be a feminist movement. And I saw that, and I think this was the tipping point for me. And I've just taken out two of the words. And if we just read this without the words. So, blank, like, if you're of this type X person, you can get away with being actively and embarrassingly poor at what you do. Second type of person, on the other hand, must be exceptional if they are to be celebrated. Like, this is like the format for bigoted people's opinions. Like, I've seen this so many times with it saying, black people, you can get away with being really bad and white people have to be exceptional. Women, you can get away with being embarrassingly bad, but men have to be exceptional. Like, I've seen this so many times. I've had this told to me about being a woman as well as being a trans person. I've seen it said about gay people. I've seen it said about everyone. Like, this is such a classic example of a bigot set. Like, as soon as, someone who fights, like, trans people have had so much systematic oppression that, when one of them does make it big and people celebrate them, maybe some people do overhype them a little bit. Like, it's the same with any minority group. Because you're like, wow, fine. Like, I follow these trans celebrities like Laverne Cox and stuff. I'm not a connoisseur of actors. I don't like films. I literally only watched Orange is the New Black because she was in it. But that's because she's the first trans person who's fought through all of this structural oppression against her. I don't even really need to explain this. I feel like anyone who saw women, you can get away with being actively and embarrassingly poor at what you do. Men, on the other hand, must be exceptional if they're to be celebrated. If you saw that, you'd be like, that's a misogynist. Like, I don't need to listen to this person's opinion. That is a generic, prejudiced, bullshit view. But of course, this person said trans women are biological women. And this tweet broke me. And I was just like, there are some genuine reactionary bigots here. And I don't know if they're most of them. I don't know if it's just some of them. But this person was, I think still is, fairly respected in the gender critical movement. They got quite a lot of retweets and stuff here. I think they're much bigger in the gender critical movement than they were in 2018. Like 2018, it was still kind of kicking off. So, yeah, I just sort of if I was a genuine feminist who opposed trans rights and I saw that would set off my pattern matcher And I'd be like, that's a bigoted tweet. I've seen them say that about women before. I've seen them say that about black people before. So it's bullshit. That's a bullshit argument. Anyway, I thought it was just interesting to go into that. So we're going to end on this one. For some reason, so this isn't my tweet, I saw it going around, unfortunately deleted before I get my own screenshot. For some reason, putting your pronouns in your bio has offended all of the reactionaries, and now there's this like meme about people who have pronouns in their bio being bad. And this person came up with the amazing tweet: when you see people put pronouns in their bio, you pretty much know exactly what kind of person they are. Yeah, that's the point. Thanks, mate. Good summary of the reason why we do that. Anyway, thank you everyone for sticking around to the end. We've gone on a bit long today, but I hope it was all fun. I hope I didn't do too many rants. This was a bit of a grumpy one. For anyone, this is your first one. Like, some of them is mainly laughing. Go and check out the Juice episode. That was hilarious. But this is a little bit of a ranty one because it's been just kind of like a small, grumpy week. But I've got one exciting announcement that I'm about to cover. So I would like to unveil my next project, which is the Transatlantic Call-In Show. So this is me, and this is my friend Arden. I'll put her Twitter in the description, and you should all go and follow her. She is at Arden of Eden. And both of us are part of like the skeptic community, and I do some call-in shows with atheists, and we just people call in and they say about their beliefs or about their religion, and we discuss them with them. And we are basically stealing that format from the atheist experience and Call the Line and Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, all of these great shows. We're going to take that and we're going to have people, you guys, and also gender critical people, or just people who want advice because they have a trans person in their life and they don't know how to phrase questions, can call in and talk to two trans women. And if you're willing to have a respectful conversation and you totally disagree with us, call in. If you want to ask some really rude questions, you're like, oh, I don't know the words for it, I just want to ask that horrible genital question that all cis people want to ask for some reason, call in and we'll answer it, because it's going to be a good time to talk to trans people who are in the frame of mind to deal with these kind of cringe questions. So the theme of the show is asking us questions that you shouldn't really ask to other trans people respectfully. That doesn't mean that you have to tiptoe on eggshells. It just means don't be a prick. So that's the next project, and that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. I hope that this sounds like a good idea. We'd absolutely love feedback. Hit me up on Twitter. We've got a Twitter for this. I'll put that in the description. I'll put loads of stuff in the description for this video, and give it a follow. We've got a YouTube. It's going to be a whole new channel, so it should be exciting. We're going to do a pilot episode, and maybe it'll be a disaster, and then we'll just sweep it under the rug, or maybe it'll be something and we'll keep going. It could be really fun. If you have any questions that you really want to ask me or Arden, or just about trans people in general, save them up and we would love you to call in, because it would be great. Anyway, so that is the end of the show this week. Thank you very much for sticking around. It's been an hour and a half. Please like and subscribe, all that YouTubey stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. I love you all. Thanks for coming along. Next week at 9 p.m. UK time, we will do the next episode, and we'll see what nonsense the gender critical people have in the coming week. Hopefully none, but there's going to be loads. Bye.